Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me on Zoom this week. Today, we're going to be working on our creative color still lives that we started last week. If you remember, last week we went over what a still life is, and it's usually a drawing or a painting that has objects from everyday life, and artists would use this to show their situation, so how they were living, what their daily life was like, and we created our sketches, which were an outline of the big shapes and objects in our still life, and we outlined areas of light and dark only using line. Now today we're going to look at some still lifes. This one here is a still life from the 1870s in France, and we can see that maybe they are having breakfast. And maybe this is something we might see in our own house. We have a newspaper and maybe a piece of bread on the little dishes there. And this has a pretty realistic use of color, right? We remembered about realism is what we see. So usually the newspaper is black and white, the ham is pink and red, and the bread is nice toasty brown. And in the background, we have a kind of dark area that's a little bit olive colored. And then we have another artist here, Paul Cézanne, who is painting around the same time period, and his colors are a little different. They're a little bit brighter. He's not being as detailed, right? So we see bigger areas of color, and our fruits are all different shades of red and orange and yellow. And our background in our room is like teal, right? And we have a little dark part on the right to show depth. And now we have a different still life by an artist named Pablo Picasso. Maybe we remember talking about him before. And we can see that even though his objects are not realistic, we can still tell that it's a still life. We have some fruit, we have some bottles, we have a table, and we have a lot of green. So everything here is green except a couple little highlights of red and yellow and white. But we can still see what we're looking at even though he didn't use the color realistically. And now we have another example of an artist who's using color in a creative way in a still life. So we have our plate in the middle, which has maybe a vegetable on it, and the vegetable is cut in half with the color. So we don't think that really happens in real life. One half of your vegetable is brown and the other is white in a straight line. So we see that our artist here is using her color creatively. And we have the big red tablecloth and some maybe blue cabinets in the back, very dark. And one more artist. So here we have very limited use of color, right? We have the blue, the yellow, black and white, but we can still see what the different objects are because this artist is using pattern to show value. So when our lines are close together, it looks darker. And we still have our highlights on our, maybe on his vase here, which we looked at last week. Remember our highlights? And we have one side of this, I'm going to say it's an apple, is darker because it has darker blue lines. And the other side is lighter because it just has some dots. So speaking of value, let's quickly review value. So we remember value is how light or dark something is. So this, I'm sure we remember our picture and fruit image from last week, which we did our sketches from. And last week we talked about how dark the background is, right? Behind the picture, it's very dark, it's black. And our small vase there on the left-hand side is slightly lighter, right? So it's a dark color, but it's not black. Then our table and our pears here are a mid-tone. And finally, the picture is the brightest spot, right? It's white. And that's our areas of light. And you can see little shiny marks where it's, very close on the edge of the picture there. A little shiny mark on the vase, a little shiny mark on the pears, and those are our highlights. So just like in black and white, colors are light and dark. So here we are looking at our image again, but in color. And we still notice that even though it's in color, we can squint, right? Remember, we were squinting to look. The vase is still the background is still the darkest. The small vase on the left is still the next darkest, right? That dark crimson red. And then moving up, our pears are like kind of an orangey peach color. Those are the next lightest. Our table is the next lightest. It's that sky blue color, right? And then our white, there's still a lot of range in our whites. So we have the cloth, which is white, and then the pitcher, which is white, and the pitcher is a little bit brighter. So you can see that we can use color to show light and dark here. And we can pick whatever colors we like. So again, our background is the darkest. I switched these colors because I like purple and green. And we can see that it still reads the same way, right? It still looks the same in terms of value. So when we squint, again, we can see the background is the darkest, it's black. Then the vase, then our pears on our table, and then our pitcher and our fabric are the lightest. So today we are going to add color to our sketches. And as you know, everyone got one box of pastels to bring home, and we are going to pick 4 colors from our box. Now, I'm sure you're saying, uh-oh, Miss Hine, I don't have red. I don't have orange. How am I going to draw the red and the orange vase and the fruit? Well, we are going to do what we saw in the last slide and pick our colors, whatever we feel like we want to use. We're going to be creative, and we're going to explore and use different colors to show value. So what I want you to do is pick 4 colors that range from dark to light. So pick one that is the darkest, then pick one that is a little lighter, then pick one that's a little lighter than that one, and finally the lightest color. So I'll show you what colors I'm choosing. My blue will be the darkest blue. Then I have my purple, which is the next darkest. I used a dark yellow. And then finally that bright, bright green. And we can see when we look back and forth, there's a range, right? From dark to light. So we want to get a full range of colors. Okay, so now we're going to begin blocking in color. Remember, we always want to work from dark to light and from big areas to small areas. So again, my darkest color was the blue, and you can choose any color that you like that is dark. And I'm going to start blocking in areas that I think are the darkest. No matter what color it is in real life, I'm just going to squint and try and see the biggest areas of shadow, right? So that would be the background, that would be the side of the vase, the side of the pitcher. And I'm going to just keep working by blocking in, which means you can use the side of your pastel. You can use the tip. We can push hard or draw lightly, okay? And we're going to just keep adding our colors. And then we're going to pick our next lightest color. So remember, my next lightest color was purple. Yours can be whatever color you like. And then we're going to squint, squint, squint at the image and see where the next lightest areas are. So remember, our next lightest areas were the vase to the left and the pears to the right. And I'm blocking in some areas of shadow there too on the fabric. And we're just going to keep working through our colors. So then my next lightest one was yellow. I'm now blocking in the table there because remember that's my mid-tone. So my yellow is my mid-tone and I'm going back and forth and adding the next layer where I see it needs to go. And we're going to continue doing so until we use all our colors. So now remember the bright green, that was my lightest color. You can use whatever color you like. And now I'm coloring in the area of the fabric, some of the areas of the picture, because those were my lights. Remember, my light areas. And then finally, we can go back and add small details. So here we can see I put a little highlight on my pear. I did the little stems of the pear. I put a little highlight on my vase there, and that's going to be the last thing we do. And we always want to leave those areas as we're working forward. We want to leave them white so that we can put our highlights there. And and I've also included the white pastel, which we can put on top, right? Make a highlight that way. And I'm going to, in the next few slides, put the directions and give you another copy of the image so we can work from that. And then for next class, please bring your drawings back. We will use our iPads, which I'm very excited about, to take pictures of them. And then we're going to turn them into black and white. So even though we spent all this time choosing our colors, we're going to see if our colors are the right values for the areas that we chose. And I'm excited to see what they look like. Maybe they might look like this. See how my blue is still the darkest? So now it's reading the darkest as the black on my drawing here. Okay, guys, so I'm going to leave the directions and the reference photo for you here. And feel free to go back and forth through the presentation at the pace that you need. We can always work through the steps slowly. I'm just giving you an overview of the steps so that we can get all our instructions done. And I'm very excited to see what you'll bring in next week.